2022, the year of the rabbit, the year the Queen of England passed away, the year Robert Pattinson became the greatest Batman in history, the third year of being with my best friend, the year I turned 22. Some people say that you learn a lot when you turn 21. That's the age that you become an adult. But for me, that was 22. Often the number that's overlooked, but I will cherish it forever. Let's be real. 2022 was a doozy. It was a bit of a doozy. We sort of went back to normal after everything that was COVID related. I mean, that's sort of what the government told us. I remember all the outbreaks. Seeing my friends drop and have to quarantine was a brutal sight to see. And this was right at the start of 2022 when in Australia, things had started to open up again. I remember going to work and being one of 3 people that could actually be there. I remember having to live at my friend's house on his couch whilst my housemates had COVID. And I was sort of away at the time, so I couldn't really go back, otherwise I'd probably get it. I felt homeless. I also felt quite alone. Feeling lonely is one of the big themes of this video and why I'm making it. It was a massive part of this year because I felt very alone. But we'll get to that. I'm Kyle, aka the Curly Sanguine. Or you might know me as Curly or Sanguine, depending on what you say. I don't care what you call me, they're all me. Here I am sitting in my pajama pants, my oversized hoodie, and my Cooker's Bickies beanie, thinking, where did all the time go? 2022 felt like a fever dream. It went incredibly quickly. So here I am making a video journal or a yearly review to really focus on what happened. Some of you might be thinking, why don't you just write it down in a book? Just draw it or, write it down in a journal. We'll get to that a little bit later on as to why I can't really do that. For now, I'll explain how this video is going to pan out. It is going to be divided in 3 parts. Part 1 being revolved around the months of January, February, March, April. And they sort of combine to make part 1, The Dark Knight. Then the months of May, June, July, and August make up the second part, which I like to call part 2, A New Hope. And last, but certainly not least, we have part 3, which covers the months of September, October, November, and a little bit of December, which I like to call Little Miss Sunshine. I'll admit that these first 4 months of this year were some of the hardest months I've ever had to live through. I had moved in a house with my workmates and I was slowly losing money every single day. In January, I went on a really nice holiday with some of my friends, which then turned out to not be so lovely. Reasons that I will not get into in this video, but if you know, you know. January went, I was working a lot, and then February came. I made the most of this month by going out, drinking a lot, going to parties, meeting new people. I was trying to make the most of my time that I had left before going back to university. And then suddenly, on February 14th, Valentine's Day, my girlfriend's cat died. She unfortunately passed away from cancer. And instead of my partner going on a romantic dinner or having a little bit of a movie night, we instead sat huddled, crying, upset, because one of our friends had passed away. Scarlett was a beautiful cat, and my partner had had her for a while. I was, I think, the only other person that Scarlett would actually come up to and be around other than my partner. She always had the funniest face when she went to the litter box. She always looked terrified when she was there that we were going to be turning around the corner and seeing her there and staring directly at her while she, did her business. I promise you, Scarlett, I only looked once. My partner wanted me to see your face when you went to that little bar. I had to look. I'm sorry. It was funny, okay? I'm sorry, Scarlett. It was pretty funny. Then the next week came. I went back home, and a few days later, I found out that one of my favorite teachers had passed away. Unfortunately, it was due to suicide. Someone who I thought was a really great mentor to me had been suffering for so long. And I encourage any of you out there who are feeling this way to reach out for support, reach out for help, do whatever you can, because I love and support you. And then the next week came, and my dog died. That was February. Death was a constant reminder in that month, and it hurt a lot. I never thought I'd experience so much grief in such a small amount of time. Then it was March, which I would argue was probably the hardest part of my life. I was having lots of doubts about myself. I was having doubts about my relationship, my family, my work. I was very doubtful about everything. I was stuck, and I felt very, very alone. I don't often hear about feelings of loneliness. You hear about those times where you might not go out one night and all your friends do, and you feel quite lonely about that, or get FOMO. But what I'm talking about is that feeling that you get when you feel like there is nothing else around you. It doesn't matter where you look or where you go, it feels as if there is no one around you. Each footstep you take is unknown. It's a horrible feeling. Knowing that there are people and support that are out there for you, but also not really believing it at the same time. To a few parties, hoping it would make me feel better. I tried to make new friends, and I was doing all of that to try and fill up a hole that I had. But I just kept digging it deeper and deeper. And April came, and my pop died. The family member that I felt closest to. Sorry, other family members. My pop took me out on drives almost every single day to fill up that hole. I loved my pop. And when he died, I felt incredibly guilty. I thought it was shock at first, but after a few days there was still nothing. Realized that my grief had been soaked up. That every little bit of grief that I had been sucked away from me in the months of February and March. I felt incredibly horrible. The man who I cherished and looked up to so much was gone, and I felt nothing. I sat at my computer one night and I watched Dunkirk. I realized as I was watching the movie that I'd only ever seen this once before. And I was trying to figure it out, and it only hit me when the movie finished. I watched this movie with my pop in cinemas way back when it came out. The tears came and I felt an overwhelmingly sense of relief. I could finally feel something. I will always remember the chance and the moments that I had with him before he passed away. And that brings us on to... moved back into my mum's house in May, and I even offered to pay board. I also continued my studies whilst I was living there. It was good. The 6 months that I lived away from my family taught me a lot of things. Taught me to appreciate things more, taught me to treat my things a little bit better. It taught me a lot of things. May was all about new beginnings, a new look at life, a whole new set of emotions, a new pair of glasses, a new graphics card, which, let's be honest, I had to throw in there because it's made a massive difference, and a new favourite movie. In June, I started something massive. I began my Twitch channel. I finally figured out a name after days and days of pondering and thinking and creating. It fit me perfectly, the name that I thought of. And that was The Kelly Sanguine. When it came and when I thought of it, I cannot express the joy I felt. On July 18th, I had my very first stream. I played Lucius, which I'd always wanted to play, and it was incredible. It was an incredible stream. I was in my closet with all the clothes hanging around me. There was barely any lighting. My microphone was on the desk in front of me, but I was happy. I became affiliate after 10 days of streaming, and I felt like I was on top of the world. Thing stopped recording. I don't know if that's because it only does like 22 minutes. Which is ironic, because this video is 22. And I reached just under 100 followers in the first month. Twitch was a new hope in my life. September I struggled to stream because I was on placement for uni, where I was studying to become a teacher. So I was doing my 4-week placement. I was working about 38 hours a week as a teacher, whilst doing about 30 hours of study each week. I was also trying to get as many shifts as I could at my actual job, which kind of ended up around 10 hours a week as well. And I was getting very, very burnt out. So I made the tough choice and I deferred. I saved up a little bit of money and I bought myself a film camera. My job was giving me 30 plus hours a week and I was streaming, so life was good. October was even better. I was growing even more as a content creator, my setup was changing, I was becoming more confident with myself, and I even did my first 12-hour stream where I dressed up in a cat-maid outfit for 12 hours. I was entertaining current and new followers, and I'd finally felt like I had a place to belong. The first half of this year, I felt incredibly sad and lonely, and I couldn't picture myself out of that hole. I couldn't have been more wrong. I found a new home, new friends, a new place to belong. I thought about that little guy who was dressed as Steve Irwin, making home videos, and thought about how proud he would be to see where he was and where he was going. November was a very uneventful month in a very eventful year. Now it's currently December 8th, and I'm about to spend a week with my girlfriend celebrating 3 years together. I couldn't have asked for anything more. I couldn't really do a journal, like a written journal, because I'm currently going through a process of getting diagnosed for ADHD, which I have now discovered is a massive part of why I felt very lonely and felt a lot of struggle during this year. Turns out, wasn't me. Turns out most of it came out from ADHD. I've had a lot of growth this year, and the one thing that I've learned, or that will stick with me that I've learned, is that it will get better. And it does get tough, but it will get better, and you're okay. I am so glad I get to be 22.